Does not guarantee the results of any investments made by a listener to this program.
The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush is sponsored by the Word on Wealth Radio Network.
This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary is the San Diego financial solutions attorney, protecting people like you. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. Now, here's Gary.
It is Monday.
Happy Monday, everybody. This is Gary Quackenbush here on the Word on Wealth. It's very good to have you along here. We are live on YouTube, and if you want to listen to this show or watch me do a radio show on the YouTube, it's kind of one-sided, but people do. We have a following. It's on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search GQ space LAW or Gary Quackenbush, and you can get to my library of the past shows. Today's a special day, Monday. And we have got from GQ Law, we have our guest attorney, Rich Mathurin, coming in at the bottom of the hour, and he's going to be talking to us about settlement with the IRS. We've been talking a lot about making sure your tax returns are filed and you have extensions and all that. You know, don't pay attention to that. Just get your returns done. Find a good tax professional that you really like and trust. And if you like him and trust him, then that's the best way to go, because then you'll believe them and you'll get good advice from them. And as they guide you along this tricky path of tax preparation and tax solutions, then you'll be able to get, feel good about the solutions you're getting. So Rich will be coming in at the bottom of the hour, and specifically, I want to ask him some things about offers and compromise and how that's going, and just some different things that can be done. If you or a loved one has a horrible financial situation, a tax situation that needs to be resolved or can be, we're going to provide some answers at the bottom of the hour. All right. What if you lost a child? That mean like you can't find them. And I'm talking about if you pass away. So what happens is sometimes some people will pass away, and I'll get a call from a beneficiary, or I'll get a call from the successor trustee that's been appointed in the living trust, and they will say, Gary, what do I do now? So we go through the process of explaining that trust administration is the next step. For money to pass from a deceased person to a living person, it either has to go through probate or it has to go through the trust administration process. Now, either of those processes require notification to all of the beneficiaries. So we had a situation where we looked at the trust. The successor trustee came in and hired us and said, okay, let's do this. And we've got 5 beneficiary children. And they said, we're just going to divide the money up. I haven't seen my brother in many, many, many years. I have no idea where he is. So we're just going to divide it up between the other 4. I said, nope, you can't do that, because the trust says give it to all of my children. Then he said, okay, then we're just going to hold the 20% for my brother. We're just going to hold it in a separate bank account. And if he ever comes out of the woodwork, we'll give it to him. I said, okay, that may be the ultimate solution. That may be what we end up having to do. But we first have to notify him and all the beneficiaries. So the first thing that we're doing is the law, trust law, requires that all beneficiaries of a trust be notified in writing with a very formal notification under this probate code section that says that the successor trustee's job is to notify all of the beneficiaries of the trust. So we have 5 people. One of them is a brother that cannot be found, technically cannot be found. And so we have to send a copy of the trust to all these beneficiaries. So we obviously make our 5 copies. We're going to send it out to the 5 beneficiaries, but whoops, we have no idea where the kid is. What do you do? Well, you can't just say, a court will never accept, everything has to be done, like court legitimate type stuff. So the court's never going to accept the fact that you just say, I don't know, I haven't talked to my brother in 20 years. I have no idea where he is. That doesn't work. The judge is going to say, well, prove to me where your brother is. And if that means he's buried somewhere or you have a death certificate, that's fine. That at least shows, what happened to him and where he is. But if you can't find a death certificate, can't prove that he's passed away, he lives, and we need to find him. We hire a private investigator. One private investigator wasn't very good. Just kind of like looked around and tried to find things on the internet and did some searching here and there and said, yeah, I don't think we can find him. And then we hired another private investigator that was very good and said, okay, we've narrowed it down. We think he is last known to be in a particular shelter for people that find themselves without homes. And we found him. I mean, it's not impossible. Private investigators are really good, and they ask questions of all the right people and make the right calls and do the right thing. But if we, after the private investigator did all the research, we could go to the court and say, Judge, we couldn't find this guy. No notice of death. No, we really don't know where he's. We've looked here. We've hired this investigator. We spent this much money. And the investigator gives this big report of all the things they did. That is called your due diligence. The successor trustee can then say, with due diligence, we have looked for this brother and we can't find him. But you can't keep the money and divide it up, guys. You've got to now put the money with the court so that it just sits there. It's unclaimed property. But we've at least tried to give notification. If we did find out that he had died, then that's an easy one. You just treat him as if, it's as if he was entitled to a share. He may or may not have died before the mother did. But I mean, at this point, it wouldn't matter. His share goes into the trust, kind of cycles back through and goes out to the 4 remaining beneficiaries. Question: could we have just done that and pretended like he was gone? No, you can't, because you got to do it right. We got to go prove it. And we could get a court order if we need to, but you got to prove it. All right. So what ended up happening is the money was set aside and now going to be deposited with the court. But, what do you do? As a trustee, do you want to just hang on to it, or do you really want to deposit it with the court? It seems like a waste. So it went on basically searching. When you find a shelter where people are, they cannot give you any information. They won't tell you if the person is there or not. They just won't. It's wild because it's confidentiality. The people that are in shelters or homes, and I'm not even talking about protected shelters, but they're in homes, maybe they're homeless. If you want to find out more about this, you can give me a call, 855-500-TRUST. I'm happy to help, give you an initial consultation for free. If you're one of my listeners, 855-500-TRUST. You just mentioned this show. I'll do a free trust review for you. I'll take a look at your will, see if that works for you. We'll look at your estate property that you have and see whether you should be in a will or a trust. If your old trust is good enough, we'll look at that. Does it need to be amended, changed, updated, whatever? We can do that. 855-500-TRUST. Okay. So what we did is contacted the shelter. They said, sorry, we can neither confirm nor deny that this person is in the shelter. And so then we found out, if we just mail it and it doesn't bounce, then that means that he got it. So we went through some processes to figure out where he was. So don't lose track of your children. I'm sorry. I know that sounds really awful, but it either take them out of the inheritance, like disinherit them completely, or keep their address around so that we know what's going on, because it makes it very difficult. And it was a very, very long process to try to establish that we couldn't find him, which is just a really tricky thing. All right. I want to talk about a couple of things that I think are important. And some of these things, we just got to talk about them until we get it. Who do we name? I mean, if you have beneficiaries who are just like financially irresponsible, should you really be giving them money? Or should you just name beneficiaries who are financially responsible? That's a good question. The next thing is, what if you pass away and there's a mortgage on the house? Who pays it? I mean, what if there's a beneficiary living there? Who pays it? Who insures it? These are all the questions that really need to be answered in an estate to be able to do a proper trust administration. And we come back, we're going to be dealing with that right here on the Word on Wealth. 855-10-TRUST.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We are here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST. You're saving and investing for the future, and that's good. Have you ever stopped to think, where does my money actually go? This is faith-based investing with Anthony Wright.
Most Christian families don't understand this one thing. The money that you're saving for retirement helps fund the abortion industry as well as other liberal anti-family causes. It's the sad, dirty little secret of American investing world. And here's the good news, though. You probably also didn't know that just a few minutes of your time and we'll screen and clean your investments for you. There's no cost, no obligation. Learn the truth about your own investment mix. Then the choice is yours. Remember, the word says when God's money is in the hands of the righteous, the people rejoice. Well, we also are fiduciary investment advisor representatives. That means that our firm makes a pledge to always act in your best interest. Go to BibleSafeInvesting.com. Download a free copy of my book, Faith-Based Investing, or call me at 931-RETIRED. And please don't forget, listen to Faith-Based Investing this weekend right here on Family Talk.
Gary, our listeners are asking about trust disputes and whether or not they'll actually get the inheritance they're expecting.
I think that's a scary thing for most people because they feel like, if I ask my successor trustee, hey, where's my inheritance? You kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being like rude or whatever, inconsiderate. But I'm telling you, if time goes on, if it's been like 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, that's too long to have heard nothing. You're supposed to hear fairly soon, like within a couple of months after someone's passed, you should be hearing from that successor trustee. And if you're not, I think there's an issue we need to address. So it's not like we're going to go screaming in there, filing lawsuits. We kind of use gentle nudges like, hey, do you know what you're doing? Successor trustee, we kind of want to help you do your job, and we help beneficiaries kind of get things straightened out.
Call or click to request your free initial consultation. GQLaw.com, 855-500-TRUST, GQLaw.com.
You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's GQLaw.com, 855-5.
You're live.
Welcome to the Word on Wealth. This is Gary Quackenbush. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to have an attorney, Richard Mathurin from GQ Law, coming in to talk to us about problem solving, tax problem solving and solutions. So if you or a loved one have a tax situation that you need to resolve or think about or get dealing with, then listen to our show and we will have Rich on to be able to answer your questions. The number for the show, we have lines open right now if you want to call and ask me questions about estate planning, trust administration, wills, probate, all that. Any question you have regarding your estate plan, call me at 888-344-1170, 888-344-1170. Call, ask your question, be part of the show. You can use a secret name if you want, but I would love to have your questions answered right here on this show while you got me right here on the air. This is Gary Quackenbush with the Word on Wealth. Okay. Some of the things when we're doing estate planning that I see quite a bit, which most of us believe that estate planning, all it is when you die, your stuff goes somewhere, right? When I die, I give my money to my kids. And that's a big part of it. Another big part of it is, what if I am incapacitated? I can no longer handle my money mentally because I am incompetent. Then I need more money. In fact, there's a huge surge in increase of money that I'm going to need because I can't work, I can't produce, I can't be helpful, and sometimes I need a lot of care. So then there's going to be an increase in the amount of money that needs to be spent and I can't do it. So I got to have a trust in place to manage the money, to manage the finances, to have a successor trustee now managing my share of things so that they can keep me alive and pay for my stuff. So that's a big thing with trust. And I know, we just think in terms of, I'm not going to die. It's not going to happen. You get into a car accident, all of a sudden you go, wow, maybe I am going to die. And not soon necessarily, but we don't know. We don't know. We come to this world, we got our little ticket, and when it gets punched, we check out. So you don't know when that is. You see, estate planning is just a big thing for me. It really is. It's my life. It's what I do. I love it when people get it done. It feels very good for me. It feels very good for my team. It feels really good for the people that we're helping out. But it's really something that's got to be done. You get people like Twitch, the really famous dancer, just this really awesome guy, and he died in December. And now we're finding out he didn't have anything, no will, no trust, no power of attorneys, nothing. And I don't get that. He was a great guy, wife and kids, but surrounded by a bunch of, managers and attorneys and money guys and money people and all this stuff. And yet no estate plan. It's shocking to me. Absolutely shocking. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be shocked. That just happens. And you get Prince and Twitch and Michael Jackson and all these different people that just, Whitney Houston, that, they didn't make arrangements. Did they not think they were going to die? I mean, come on, guys, it's reality. So get your estate plan in order. If you think you can do it yourself, good luck with that. I'm not here to tell you to go do your own estate plan. I think that's a bad idea. I'd rather do it for you. Have my team put it together so it's done right. You know that your family's going to be treated right. You're going to get all the advice that you need to get it done. Speaking of that, what if you have a beneficiary who's just financially irresponsible? Would you be the parent that just says, you know what, I'll be dead, it won't matter? And you're saying that to all the money you've put away for your entire life. Everything you've put away, everything you have and own is going to your family after you die. And if you have a child that is just really wasteful, like literally going to go do something really stupid with it, like maybe buy a bunch of illegal stuff or just waste it, throw it down the drain, is it worth it to you to just let that happen to all of your stuff that you've earned and put together, put away for what, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years? And I say no. Make sure you have it so that your beneficiaries that are getting the money are the ones that are going to be spending it properly. So I have, people will say, but my kid, he's just been down on his luck and he's just never made that much money. He still lives in my basement. And I just want him to have the house and all of my money so that he can, be taken care of. Of course, the other sibling beneficiaries are trying to be nice about it, but they're screaming their heads off going, how fair is that? I mean, if you go just from even if you went from the standpoint of like the parable of the talents that you have in the Old Testament or the New Testament is like, the person with the most talent, the one that is better with the money. I mean, wouldn't you want to give them most of the money because they know how to handle it and they would make it grow and they would, do what's important with it and give some to charity and to nonprofit organizations. I mean, whatever, but wouldn't you want the financially responsible child to have most of the money and the financially irresponsible child that's just not functioning, never really sets forth and doesn't have all put out, forth the energy that he or she needs to survive? Wouldn't you want them to have less rather than all of it? You give all to them. Is that going to motivate them or inspire them to work harder or go out on their own or branch out? It's just the opposite. So maybe you don't want to send it to a beneficiary that's going to waste it. Maybe you want to structure it a little bit. And you know what? You will be dead. And that will send out a message. So you could, there's just a lot of different things that you can do. And I'd love to talk to you about that. Some people just decide they want to give some to charity because, if you have your favorite charitable organization, they're going to do with the money what they say they're going to do. So if you believe their mission statement, and you believe all they're saying about what they do with their money and their financial disclosures, then maybe that's where your money should go, because that's going to continue to do good, not just be wasted on pleasure and fun and, silly things. So that might be a solution. Maybe some money, maybe 10% to charity or 50% or, whatever works for you. Okay. If you pass away And at the same, well, when you pass away, if you have a mortgage on your home, how does that get handled? Good question. Thank you for asking. The lender is entitled to be paid, period. Okay. The agreement is that you borrowed money and the lender will be paid. If the house ever sells, they will be paid. When you die, the note is due and payable. Okay. So you have to figure out kind of with that scenario, knowing someday you're going to pass away, who's going to pay the mortgage? So that's got to be provided for. So let's say, for example, you have a situation where you've got $1 million home, right? That's homes in California, $1 million home with a $600,000 mortgage on it. Okay. That's not uncommon. I hear about that all the time. $600,000 mortgage, you're paying, $4,500 a month or $4,000 a month. And one of the kids just loves the house. In fact, he's been living there for the last 6 years to take care of you. And he wants to inherit the house. So he says, Mom, I want you to amend your trust and let me have the house. Okay. What if that does happen, to the exclusion of the other beneficiaries? Well, the kid now has a house with a $700,000 loan or $600,000 loan on it, got some equity, potentially $400,000 minus cost of sales, so maybe $300,000 or $350,000. Did you just give the kid $350,000 or did you just give him the biggest headache of his life? Because now he's got a $700,000 mortgage that's not going anywhere. Okay. And that means you just handed them this huge amount of debt. So he's going to have to sell the house anyway to pay off the loan and then buy a property with whatever proceeds he has. I mean, you don't have to give your kids a house. They can take that money and put some of it down, put $100,000 or $200,000 or $150,000 or something like that. Put it down on an affordable place, a condo, a timeshare, whatever. But let them be that person that makes that decision. Because if you leave a house to somebody, I'm never a big fan of that. But if you leave a house to somebody and you leave it with a mortgage on it, that's debt. And that has to be paid after you die. And pretty soon after, 6 to 12 months after, they're going to start coming after them for a foreclosure. And so they really better be on their toes. Because remember, if you're going to give a kid a house, they have to have the ability to maintain it. Utilities, holes in the roof, whatever that takes. Okay. So along those same lines, by the way, questions with this 855-500 trust, 855-500 trust. I'll answer your questions on this. I'll amend your trusts. I'll do whatever. The consultation is free. My work is affordable. We do amendments, new trusts, new wills. We do trust administration, distribution, probate, all that kind of stuff. All right. So the next question is, what if a young beneficiary inherits a house? Can she keep it? Yeah, young beneficiary meaning if you look in the trust and it says young beneficiaries are under some type of restriction, like if they're a young beneficiary under 35, they don't get their full share. They only get like 50% at age 30 and the balance at age 35. So you die and you leave this house in the trust for this child that's a minor. First of all, what is a young person going to do with a house? I mean, they can't maintain it. I don't care how great and wonderful of a kid it is. They can't. It's a house. It took you years and years and years to save up and to buy it, and you made payments on it all this time. They don't understand that. I mean, maybe they help you out and maybe they help you cut the lawn and do the hedges and all that stuff. I get that. I really do. But giving them a house is not going to be a big benefit because it's going to get sold anyway. And then it's just going to cause more consternation. All right. So you got to, then the next thing is, let's see. So that's, beneficial house. Okay. The next thing is, if you put a list of something down, for a child, they're going to receive some benefit or whatever. They don't have to take it. They can reject it or just say, I don't want that. I want cash. And that's fine. That's not being selfish. It's actually being smart. It's like, I don't want the house. I want the cash equivalent. So let's just divide it up. Let's sell it in the trust with a responsible successor trustee and get that money out to them. And then maybe coach them on how to invest it, right? That's what we should be teaching our kids. Okay. To review your trust, to figure out whether you've got it right. If you want to change your distribution, if you want to do a trust and you don't have one, the number is 855-500 trust. If you mention this show, you just call up my toll-free number, 855-500 trust. Just say, Gary said I could have a free trust review or a free consultation regarding your estate plan. It's fun. I'll help you enjoy the will, the trust, how that all works together, because wills, trust, power of attorneys, healthcare, all that stuff, it all fits together in your estate plan. The estate plan isn't simply a will. It isn't simply a trust. It's all these documents combined, and it makes this really comprehensive plan. One of these days, maybe I'll do it tomorrow on the show, is I'll do a rundown of what documents you should have, so you can go through the little checklist, and those would be all the things that you would have to have a complete estate plan, because that's what I want you to be, complete. A complete person, a complete client, a complete estate plan person, so that you don't have to worry about, not that you're all worried about dying and stuff like that, but it happens to everybody, and it just makes sense. My clients, what I love, best part of my job is when people understand the estate plan. They go, oh, I get it now. Now I know I need this. And then when they come in and sign the documents 2 weeks later, they are so thrilled. It's like, I can't believe we got this done. It wasn't as hard as I thought. Didn't cost as much as I thought. That is the story we constantly hear. That's the story we're going for. And we love that. 855-500 Trust. Also on my website, I've got a free book, Living Trust Basics. So go to my website, gqlaw.com, and just click on it. It's down the right-hand side of the margin. There's a book. It's a white book cover with a picture of it's a hand drawing on a chalkboard or whatever. Living Trust Basics. Download that. It's free. You just put in your name and email address, and it gets sent to you. Living Trust Basics. Get the book, and we can follow up with you. We'll be right back here on the Word on Wealth.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com.
You're live.
Right. Hey, as promised, we are back here on the Word on Wealth, and I've got Rich Mathurin from GQ Law. He's coming here to talk to us about tax problem solving and stuff like that. This is oh, I always like it when somebody calls and asks for a tax problem because I don't have to deal with it. Rich does. Rich, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on every week and being our tax guy and helping people out. And it's always a thrill for me when a client calls up and doesn't ask for me. It's kind of like, that's good. Good for me. So Rich and I were talking before the show, and we thought, what are some things that people don't know about that they really should? And I think one of the things was, is as far as tax problem solving, we're talking about when you have taxes that you can't pay. And normally we'd be talking about taxes that are older. I mean, it's not like you filed your tax return, this month early and you go, oh my gosh, I owe $20,000. I mean, those are resolvable. We can fix those, but older stuff where somebody's been chased around for a while and, we always talk about different options, payment plan, offering compromise and things like that. But the one thing that gets overlooked a lot is the option of bankruptcy. So let me first explain. Most of the time when people hear the term bankruptcy, they have their knee-jerk reaction like, oh my gosh, that's a cop-out. Well, when you start to figure out where did this bankruptcy thing come from? And I know we think in terms of, it's the person that's in the barrel. There's no clothes on. He's wearing a barrel and he's having to walk around the streets, because he's bankrupt. Well, that is Europe. Okay. That's not the United States. What happened is it used to be that over in our mother country, our former mother country, if you didn't pay your debts, you went to jail. Okay. You would go to jail and there you would stay until your debts were paid. What is the problem with being in jail and having to pay your debts? Well, in jail, you can't make any money. So what would happen is the families then would have to go to work and try to find enough money to pay off the debts of the debtor who's in prison, rotting in prison, waiting for the family to pay off the debt. So a lot of times they didn't get out. So they just became these work slaves forever. Well, when our forefathers founded our nation, it sure seems to me like they are in an all-fire hurry to get rid of that type of slavery, if you will. So what happened is in the first article of the Constitution, not the second, not the third, not the 10th, not an amendment, the first article, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 of the United States Constitution, it empowered Congress to create laws regarding bankruptcy. So, I mean, the way I feel about bankruptcy is it was, we call it a fresh start and a lot of different things, but it was so important to the founding of our nation to make it so that people that qualified, that's the key word, people that qualified for bankruptcy should be allowed a fresh start, allowed to start over, kind of like a new lease in life. But it's not like get away with, all of these huge amount of assets, oh yeah, I could pay my debts, but I don't feel like it. I'm filing bankruptcy. That stuff is baloney. That doesn't really work that way. It's like, if you're in a position where you qualify for bankruptcy, it gets rid of your debts and it lets you have a fresh start. Now, the tax code then kind of goes along with that too, but it's like you have to take 3 different sections of the bankruptcy code and the US Constitution and put them all together and work out this arrangement to figure out, can you get rid of certain debts? Now, as Rich will tell you, the federal government gets special treatment, right? They're not a regular creditor.
No, they're what's called a priority creditor.
Right.
So their debts in a Chapter 13, which is the reorganization, would need to be paid in full over the life of a plan. Under a Chapter 7, some, but probably not all of your old tax debt would be dischargeable if it meets 3 criteria.
Right. And it's like, it's like it's like a regular creditor. So you have like Visa, MasterCard, whatever, and you owe them money and you file bankruptcy. They're what we call just unsecured creditors. They just kind of go away. But then with taxes, the taxes go away. Wait a minute, we get special treatment. So in order to get rid of a tax in bankruptcy, there's let's talk about what that would take. I mean, because I know certain taxes don't go away, certain taxes do. The presumption is that no taxes go away in a bankruptcy, but then there's different criteria. So let's talk about that. If I owe a tax, what of my taxes can I get rid of potentially in a bankruptcy?
Well, it would be like we talked about, a 3-pronged rule. It's first is the 3 year, your petition has to be filed after 3 years after the tax return was due. So let's say your 2017 was due 2018, April 15th. So if you filed after on April 16th, 2021, okay, that would qualify you. So 3 years after the tax return was due, 2 years from when you actually filed the return. So let's say you filed your 17 in 19, we'd
Right.
have to wait till 2021 for that to discharge. It's not.
So,
Yeah.
so it's filed. So you could even file late and still qualify. It's just that still has to be 2 years before the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then 240 days from when the IRS actually assesses the tax on your account. So
Okay.
generally, a lot of times your actual filing is the date of assessment. They're one and the same. But sometimes the IRS may take some time and assess them later than you actually filed the thing. Or if you were audited a thing and your taxes were assessed through an audit, that would be the 240 day for the audit. Also, you would have to keep in mind that there are things called tolling events that would stop those times from running. If you were in an offering compromise, you were in a pending installment agreement, you had a previous bankruptcy, if the time you're in those things, you'd have to extend that by those tolling periods. A lot of
Interesting.
people don't have those things. And then another thing to keep in mind is if you did not file your own tax return originally, we've talked about this a number of times, the substitute for return, where the IRS files a return in place of the one that you did not file,
Mhm.
those years are not dischargeable, even if you replace it with your own return later on. So you have to keep that in mind. But,
Okay.
like right now, let's say we're in 2023, I can discharge 2019 and back. I can't discharge
Right.
20, 21, and 22. But if you qualified under all those rules and you didn't have any tolling and all that, we could discharge 19 and back. So that, that's quite a long, I have seen people discharge, 10 years of taxes, save
Mhm.
them several $100,000. It's a very powerful tool that you can use. And like we talk about, it's a fresh start. It does, you have this crushing tax and credit card debt,
Mhm.
medical debt. And after you file the bankruptcy, you don't have this as much and you can function and move forward. That's what the government and the Constitution wants. It doesn't want you to be in perpetual,
Mhm.
in hock to people. And so you can't function and you can't move forward and be a productive citizen.
Yeah, I mean, and that very well said. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's really when you start to look into the laws like Rich has, you start to realize this is set up for people to be productive members of society. We don't want people that are overburdened, because if you think about kind of in the long term, by the way, we're talking to Rich Mathurin of GQ Law. I mean, he's a tax attorney. He's really good at this stuff. If you have questions, you can call 855-500-TRUST. That's our number at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST. Talk to Rich about your tax situation. If you have friends or family members that are suffering from tax problems, call us up and get, work through that. It's like between Rich and I, we've got about 40 years of experience just in tax stuff. I mean, with lawyer stuff, we're like 50 plus between the two of us, but it's like, get this stuff figured out. Don't let it sit. Don't wait for the IRS or the state to do levies and take your stuff. That's horrible. So it's 855-500-TRUST. So the idea of the bankruptcy fresh start is that, with certain creditors, the way they're stacked up with like credit cards, and judgment creditors and all that, there are ways to eliminate those. Just the taxes have these special criteria. But, Rich, the one thing that caught my ear on that is, you could be in a situation where you get audited. The IRS has, from the day the original assessment, they've got 3 years to audit you. So you're going through an audit, and you've been through lots of audits with GQ Law, and sometimes it's just documents and documents that just go on and on and on. And sometimes your result is not what you expect. So you're saying there's even this possibility, like if the audit goes bad, now you owe a whole bunch of money. You wait 240 days for the audit basically to age enough. As long as it's an older tax return, which it probably would be, then potentially that new audited amount will go away.
Yes, as long as it meets the criteria, and
That's so cool.
that it's a very, very useful tool. One other thing that I would mention that's a huge change is I think people worry that, well, I'm not going to be able to keep my house, I'm not going to be able to keep my car, but they've changed the bankruptcy exemptions as of January 1st, 2021 in California. Now, like in San Diego County, if you have 660,000, I believe, is the amount of equity I can protect in a bankruptcy under a 704 bankruptcy exemption filing. That's a huge change. It used to be like 75,000 for an individual, maybe 100 for a couple. So that's a huge change that allows a lot more people to file a Chapter 7.
I mean, again, it's this whole kind of theme that we don't want people to be overburdened with debt. We want them to be productive members of society, and we don't want them to lose their homes and retirement accounts. So those are the things that can be protected. All right, there are a couple other things we're going to go over next. One thing is, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see I'm holding up a picture of our book. We have a book called The Tax Bankruptcy. It's available online on gqlaw.com. So if you go to gqlaw.com, click on the orange book cover called The Tax Bankruptcy. It explains not only how you can get rid of taxes in bankruptcy potentially, but also offers a compromise payment plans and things like that. So it's called The Tax Bankruptcy. It's for free on gqlaw.com. Okay, the next thing that Rich and I are going to talk about with this bankruptcy is, what if the taxes won't go away in a bankruptcy? Is there another route? What about a Chapter 13? We're going to talk about that coming up next here on The Word on Wealth.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We are here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Gary, how do you and your team help our listeners avoid probate?
Well, first of all, probate is a process that involves attorneys, judges, and sometimes contesting parties. And so we try to avoid probate at pretty much all costs. The way we do that is setting up living trusts, setting up properly documented wills, putting the property like houses, cars, bank accounts in that trust so that it avoids probate. Probate is only necessary if the estate plan isn't set up quite right. So we help them get it set up right. And mainly that's done through a properly
.com, 855-500-TRUST.
right. Here we go. So we've got Rich Mathurin from GQ Law. If you've got questions for us, the number is 888-344-1170. You can be part of the show. Ask us a question regarding, we're talking about tax problem solving today. So if you have friends, neighbors, loved ones that are dealing with a tax situation, those can be tricky. They're not like a credit card. It's not like a regular old lawsuit where you're getting sued for money. The government gets a very special treatment, and we've been talking about that here with Rich. Now, we talked about Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And by the way, you can go on my website, gqlaw.com, and get the free book that we've written called The Tax Bankruptcy. It explains this stuff so you can read it in the privacy of your own home. If you just put in your name and your email address, and the book gets sent to you in the form of a PDF. So that's on gqlaw.com, The Tax Bankruptcy. It's an orange book cover. It's on the right-hand side of every page. You just click on it and put in your name and email address, and it sends you the book. So with the Chapter 7, we've determined that if the taxes were more than due more than 3 years before the bankruptcy, filed more than 2 years before the bankruptcy, and assessed more than 240 days before the bankruptcy, then they could be eliminated in a Chapter 7. And there are exceptions to that, but that's the basic rule. And we're talking now about what if you had some taxes, like newer taxes that are not dischargeable, and some old ones. And Rich and I were just talking about that with the Chapter 13. So I wanted Rich to kind of go over and tell us, Rich, the kind of the Chapter 13, like what is the concept of this Chapter 13? Is this who qualifies, and then what basically does the Chapter 13 do for people?
Well, a Chapter 13, as opposed to a Chapter 7, Chapter 7 would be what we call a liquidation bankruptcy. Chapter 13 is what they call a reorganization bankruptcy, where you're paying off your secured creditors. That would be your mortgage, your car loan, in full. Your priority creditors, generally in full, that would be the IRS, the California Franchise Tax Board, alimony and child support. And then your unsecured creditors would be paid some portion of their claim from 0 cents to 100 cents on the dollar, depending on your income and assets. So it's more giving a reorganization, giving you time to kind of budget and plan for the future. You have to submit the plan to the court for approval, and as long as it's approved, it passes, and you're able to pay it off. Generally, it's a 5-year plan. I think it's under 33,000 would be a 3-year plan, but over 33,000 in debt would be a 5-year plan, most cases. So it does give you a chance to, kind of reorganize your life and pay your creditors off on your own schedule, as opposed to having them, sue you for, and get default judgments against you.
So then a lot of that is, the nice thing, I guess, with the Chapter 13, it's under the bankruptcy code. So when you file that Chapter 13, you have they have to stop collections, right? Talk about the automatic stay, the thing that happens when you file.
Well, that's really where a Chapter 13 comes into play. A lot of times we have people that have foreclosures where their mortgage is being foreclosed on by their mortgage lender. And I've had foreclosures where the person comes in on a Friday afternoon and the foreclosure is scheduled on a Monday morning, and we were able to stop. What happens when you file the bankruptcy immediately, an automatic stay is put into place. And that means that creditors cannot take their own involuntary collection activities outside of the bankruptcy court. They have to do everything through the bankruptcy court. So it would stop a foreclosure. It would stop a judgment creditor, whether a credit card sued you in civil court for unpaid credit card debt. So it's a very powerful tool. And again, everything has to be worked out through the bankruptcy court. The plan provides for repayment of all of your debts. Again, the secured creditors in full, priority creditors generally in full, and then the unsecured creditors get some portion of their claim based on your income and assets.
So this is literally, I think, when we think of reorganization, a lot of people are thinking, I always say a lot of people, it's kind of like it's where my mind goes. Like the reorganization was like, you have a big company, like you have, I don't know, an airline files for bankruptcy, or a big company files for reorganization. You think, oh, that makes sense to me because it's a big company. They got shareholders, they got assets all over the place, and they file for this reorganization where all the creditors have to get involved. And I did one at a reorganization years ago, and it was for a sourdough bread company, and it was really, really big. And we thought, oh my gosh, we're going to lose this company and whatever. We end up getting bought out by Parisian sourdough bread. And that was the reorganization. We restructured. But if it weren't for the reorganization plan, every single creditor, there were lease creditors, and there were, supply creditors and credit cards and loans. Everybody was like in this feeding frenzy to get whatever they could from this guy. We filed the bankruptcy, immediately it stops. But that's like big companies, multi-gajillion dollar, Chapter 11. And the 13, it feels like it's kind of a scaled down. You can have still some big numbers, but it's just a scaled down reorganization. And I love how you're explaining that, yeah, the creditors still get paid based on their claim priority, and if they're a priority creditor or unsecured, but it has to go through the plan. So everybody has to stop. It's like, stop, everybody get in line. And then like a creditor, if they want to get paid, they can't just say, hey, I want money. They have to go through a process.
No, they have to file a proof of claim showing what they believe they're owed and documenting, loan statements, loan agreement, all of that has to be filed with the bankruptcy court. So, and then you can, as a debtor, object to a proof of claim. If you don't believe you owe certain creditor that amount of money, or you don't owe them at all, you can file an objection to that proof of claim. But again, it is a process where they have to present their claim to the bankruptcy court and back it up with evidence of that the debtor owes it.
See, that's what I think is the coolest thing, is that you have, admittedly, some people that really need the help from bankruptcy, it's gotten to the point where there's just things are just piling up, and they're almost like ready to throw their hands in the air. Their wages are subject to attachment, their bank accounts are being, and then you stop it and just get everybody in line. And I think it's cool that in a Chapter 13, every creditor, it doesn't, government creditor, IRS, state of California, whatever, they all have to come in with actual proof of their claim. So that's where, the IRS would come in and say, here's our proof of claim, and they list out each tax year and what their claim amount is. And you're saying that you could actually go in and object to that if it were possible.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this in the past. If you got audited or you had an appeal and you didn't believe that the IRS, you owed the IRS for a certain year, you can object to their proof of claim for that year and get another bite at the apple. And the bankruptcy court would try, the IRS would present evidence and you would present evidence, and you would have another bite at the apple, I guess, on a audit or an appeal. So that's another way to get, if your appeal rights were exhausted with the IRS outside of the bankruptcy, you can do it in the bankruptcy. One thing I think a real world example now, a lot of people got COVID forbearance for their mortgages, and then they had so now they've had like 10 months they didn't pay their mortgage, and now the mortgage company is looking for the payment, the full payment of all those months right up front. And some will put it on the back of the loan, but this is where Chapter 13 might come into handy. You can put that 10 months of arrearage. Let's say it's $30,000, and we can put that in the plan, and they're paid back on a monthly basis over that 5 years, that 30,000. So you're not paying it all at once. It's over. We call that a mortgage arrearage, and you can space that out in the plan and pay that off, and then they can't foreclose on you. So that's a very useful tool.
So we have Rich Mathurin from GQ Law. He's an attorney that works for GQ Law and deals with taxes, bankruptcies, tax problem solving, all kinds of stuff. And his area of expertise is in this, like, solving tax problems. So it's really great to have him on the show regularly with us every Monday, and we talk about these kind of things. So I guess, Rich, the what I like about what you're saying with this Chapter 13 is, like, these forbearances. Some people really, I think they don't quite understand the forbearance. It just seemed like, okay, didn't pay the mortgage, forbearance, not going to take my house, forbearance, and they just kept putting it off. And now all of a sudden it's like the problem has now come home to roost, and the creditors are just saying, hey, you didn't pay for 2 years. We want our money now or else.
Yeah, forbearance does not mean that forgiveness. It's a big difference. And that I've seen a number of clients that were like, hey, I thought I was in a COVID forbearance. I thought they waived this amount. No, they delayed collection of it. And, a lot, like I said, some mortgage lenders will put it on to the end of the loan if you jump through a number of hoops, but a lot of them want the money immediately. Once their COVID forbearance plans are up, then they demand. So it's a huge amount of money that's owed right now. And like I said, we can, through a Chapter 13 and a 5-year plan, we can pay that off over 5 years and not immediately. So, you don't owe 30,000 or 60,000 or whatever. We can spread that out over the 5 years. One other thing I want to quickly mention, Gary, on your tax bankruptcy. Tax bankruptcy is a specialized thing for if your taxes are at least more than 50% of the debt that you owe, you may qualify for a Chapter 7 because and you would not have to have an income test that normally do apply for a Chapter 7, whether it's 6-month back means test or a current month budget test. So please contact us about that. If you think you normally would have too high an income or assets for a Chapter 7, if your taxes are a large portion of your debt, then you may qualify for a Chapter 7. It's an important factor, I think. too.
Super good point. And that's why we have Rich here at GQ Law, 855-500 Trust. If you have questions about taxes, tax problem solving, debt management, debt problems, that's Rich right here at GQ Law, 855-500 Trust. So I want to remind you, go to our website. There's a lot of resources there. It's gqlaw.com. You can read about Rich. You can read about me and our team that we have here. So I just appreciate Rich, you being on the show, and I hope people will download the book and
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth, featured since 1995, with financial solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future.
The information you
here all week.
general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs.